Okay, so I did put in my description yesterday that I would discuss the reason why and the purpose for that video to be posted. My very first video, in fact, and it's very important. Actually, it's kind of yeah, it's very important because basically thinking and believing that I am bipolar and identifying as bipolar, like really truly believing that's who I was, because I was told that I was ever since I was 13. I, treated myself as such. So when I decided to try mushrooms for the first time, I had a very beautiful experience. It was really nice. I did a small dose, probably about 1.5 grams, and it was really, really nice. I do remember a little bit of shitty, like a rocky moment in that towards the end, but otherwise, like, I remember even putting on Facebook, like, I'm not going to say the name of them because I don't want to get in trouble, but basically, blah, 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 is going to be the cure for chronic pain and depression. Because I remember I was just laying on my couch, and I was very, very comfortable. My back was not hurting. I was happy. I was laughing. Anyway, moving on. I'm not going to go into detail about this trip, but I also was very naive about psychedelics, and I thought basically all of them were created equal, and the same thing about mushrooms. All of those were created equal. So LSD, mushrooms, you hallucinate, they're all the same. Then mushrooms and mushrooms, it doesn't matter what they're called, they're all going to give you the same effect. Not true. And I did have an ego death, and it was a bad trip. It was one that, it was bad, but I wouldn't wish it on anyone who was wanting to, heal and use it for medicinal purposes. But that is the reason why it is so important for the legal, not legalization, but decriminalizing treatment and therapy, or treatment and therapy sessions with psilocybin, LSD, DMT, ibogaine, all of those. It's very important because if I didn't have my husband with me, then it could have been very bad. So this is important for me to say that don't just, like, absolutely do not take a massive amount of mushrooms, especially high potency ones, and think that everything is going to go great unless you are in the right setting and state of mind. I was not, and I was already on the brink of a mental breakdown by this point. So, and I had a very stubborn ego death. And the ego death is thrown around a lot, but it's not everyone is created equal either. So it's very hard to define an ego death because everyone's is different. Mine was very traumatizing. In fact, it made it really hard for me to take mushrooms after that because of that experience. It was very intimidating. It was very scary. I did, but I was terrified. I had to put a lot of it off until I had the perfect setting. Usually I had to have some kind of benzo with me, or I have to take a small amount just so I could. But let me make this clear. It really should be under some sort of guidance or a trip sitter or something. But keep in mind, I also did not know anything about the differences between potency. I had no clue about what the power of mushrooms actually could have. To me, it was just like a trip at the time, and it basically showed no mercy on my soul. But back to the point of the last video is after that, I had about 12 hours later, my life had changed completely. And I guess, well, I was integrating this ego death for about 8 months until I was introduced to something else, and I will get there later. But I was getting to a point where I was like struggling to get to where I wanted to be really badly and quickly. And unfortunately, I like all of this I learned on my own. I had no one here to guide me through or tell me this is how it's done, or I had no therapy, no nothing. This was all on my own. So I had the mental, like for me, it was, a quick fix. Like it was going to happen and it was going to happen quickly. And then I was going to be good. Like I was going to be good for a long time. And if I have to take some more later, I will. That's not exactly the case. And if you don't have the right kind of people around you to tell you or help you integrate what you've gone through, you will not come out completely on top. It might be a little bit more difficult. And for me, it was difficult for about 8 months. It was consistently like getting better, but I was losing myself completely. And it scared me, and I didn't know what was going on. So at a certain point, I was extremely desperate for help. And I went on Maps, and I started looking for trials and studies for psilocybin therapy treatment. And this is in 2022, I believe, maybe 21, I don't remember, but 2022 now. Yeah, 2022. I can't really remember what year, but that I started to look to see if I could just jump into a study so that I could at least get the psilocybin and then also have the therapy and blah blah blah. But it was because I couldn't afford it, and I was so desperate to kind of finish breaking down that wall that I had started. Unfortunately, every single one that was available and open exempt all people with bipolar 1 and 2, male and female. So it held me back. It was disappointing because I couldn't actually join these trials and studies. It's just because I couldn't afford to go to a retreat. I had no money. So this was my last option, like the final resort. And I think I'm doing that backwards. Final option, last resort. Yeah. But I was exempt because I thought I had bipolar. So I just want to say that anybody who was diagnosed with a mental health condition at a very young age, like me, or younger, I highly recommend that you go and you get a second opinion, because you could be missing out on an opportunity of a lifetime. I had to start journalizing my entire journey and my entire process because I wanted to actually eventually one day be able to send it over to Johns Hopkins or one of those universities that were doing studies, even over in the UK, to explain to them, hey, like I have bipolar, and I'm benefiting. I haven't had any issues. I haven't had any problems. I'm benefiting from it. Well, unfortunately, I guess I didn't really need it. Then I eventually, I talked to my husband, and he talked to me, and he said, I don't think that you should ever get off of your Lamictal, because we thought for a long time that was helping me. But my intuition, my instinct, and my gut was telling me that I don't think first of all, I don't think this is helping me much. And I'm also not sure I even need it. So I ended up getting off of lamotrigine probably probably several months after taking mushrooms and using it for medicinal purposes, using it for with intention, and going through the steps. As I got to know the community, I, was able to understand it more. And I got off of Lamictal, and I have not been on it ever since. And that would be like 3 years at least, or 2.5, 3 years now. And I have had zero problems. In fact, I believe that the Lamictal, I know that the Lamictal caused me to have what felt like PMDD-like symptoms, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And that all started when I first started taking Lamictal at 23. All of that started happening. In fact, I reached out to a group of girls that I was really close with during my pregnancy, and I talked to someone who was also in that group who has PMDD, and she brought it up to me, and I'm like, oh my God, that's everything like me. I wasn't like this before I had kids. What's going on? Well, that I just started taking I had taken Lamictal. I was starting to take that. I had never been like that before. As soon as I got off, it took a month for me to start regulating my hormones. And I was actually feeling like a 16-year-old girl again. Like, I felt I don't have 2 weeks worth of just hell, irritability. I just can't stand being around anybody, snapping, lashing out at my kids, hating myself for it. After I stopped taking Lamictal, all of that stopped almost instantly, and it has never come back. I have never had a manic episode since. I've never had one before that. I haven't had any deep depression where I'm stuck in bed for days. I've never had that before either. I have had no problems. So please get a second opinion, especially if you were diagnosed at a younger age like me, because they could be very wrong. My parents grew up at during a time where antidepressants, all of those things were kind of pretty popular, and they didn't seem to be so harsh, and they were like an answer to everybody's problems. But unfortunately, it was quite devastating on me for years. So I really hope that this helps someone. I did deal with postpartum depression, and but I didn't deal with the postpartum depression. I went in for it and I got out without help for it. And it took me 3 years of psilocybin therapy on myself to actually come to terms with the fact that I did have postpartum depression.